Zoomed in. He is Alex Lasry, Milwaukee Bucks executive and U.S. senatorial candidate. Alex, welcome back to the big show.
Thanks so much for having me.
Alex, a big day for your campaign. You are the first one out there trying to make a difference. And here's what I mean. We have seen other big candidate races, and there are a lot of people that would like to be the opponent of Ron Johnson and win that U.S. Senate race. And we know, Alex, you're in, and there's lots of others in. And we've seen perhaps a similar dynamic in the prior gubernatorial race that Tony Evers won. And I was just shaking my fist during a period of time because I didn't feel like the other candidates did much to distinguish themselves. You know, they did the candidate forums and they did the glad handing events, but they didn't run ads. They didn't distinguish themselves in any way, shape, or form. Well, Alex, you took a real big step today, and you are the first one taking this step. You are up big on media, specifically television, but I know it's a bigger buy than that. It's digital. It's a lot of things. Alex, let's talk about the buy. Where did you buy, and tell us about the ad as well, sir?
Yeah, I mean, so we thought right now, look, that the stakes are too high to let the election keep going without making sure that we were introducing ourselves to voters. We want to make sure that we're not going to be able to be defined by the Republicans or by anyone. We want to make sure that we come out and define ourselves and introduce ourselves to the voters and pair our grassroots strategy that's been going really well with a paid communication strategy on television and on digital to make sure that we can reach more voters and let them know about this Senate race and about the importance of this race, and also be able to introduce us to the electorate. And so we made sure we did a big statewide buy. I think there might be a couple markets we're not in, but making sure that we're able to, again, reach voters in addition to making sure that we're, going out there in person, making sure that we're also able to show up in their living room and on their iPads a little bit too.
Well, Alex, we're in audio media, so we won't play the ad, but let me ask you, a lot of references to your relationship with the Milwaukee Bucks. You're obviously on leave from the franchise due to your candidacy. But what do you think is most important for the people to know? What did you feature in the ads regarding your relationship? And I know you had some other electeds that were also featured in the ad. But what did you want the people to know about your relationship with the Bucks and the Fiserv Forum Arena? And who did you elicit to join you in this ad?
Yeah, what we wanted to do with this ad was introduce myself to the wider public, and to the broad section of voters. And what we wanted to tell them was, look, we're not just a campaign, and I'm not just a candidate that's going to be talking about issues. We're actually getting stuff done, and we have a track record of having accomplished things like a $15 minimum wage, like creating good union jobs, like being on the front lines of racial and social justice and voting rights, and doing things to actually combat climate change. Now, these are all things that, again, we're not just talking about, we're actually having a track record of results on. And what we wanted to be able to tell people is, if you're looking for a senator to go to Washington and get things done, I'm the candidate and we're that campaign. And so, we wanted to then be able to kind of validate that with people we've worked with and people we know, people like Milwaukee County Executive David Crowley, who I worked with on the arena legislation and now on the Deer District with him as county executive. People like Martha Love, who was instrumental in bringing the DNC convention, here to Wisconsin. Dave Hansen and Dana Walks, all people that I've worked with, and Joe Costa, who I worked with a ton on LGBTQ rights and on Fiserv Forum. And so these are all people who, were able to come out and say, hey, look, Alex isn't just someone who talked about these things. He's actually someone who made promises and kept them and was able to get action and results. And that's what we're trying to tell people.
Alex Lasry, our fine guest, he is a U.S. senatorial candidate. Alex, the ads, obviously you want to raise the name recognition, perhaps favorability ratings. What does a successful ad campaign look like 13 months out?
I think a successful ad campaign is exactly what we're going for, which is introducing ourselves to the voters and beginning to define what this race is going to look like, and letting people know the stakes of this race and who the best candidate to not just go up against Ron Johnson or whoever the Republican is, but actually go to Washington and get things done. I think that's the thing we sometimes lose in the thought process of what are we looking for in this race. Like obviously we want to get rid of Ron Johnson, but what we also want to do is make sure that we have a senator, because one of the biggest problems with Ron Johnson was that for the last 10, 11 years, he just hasn't done anything. He hasn't done anything to bring federal resources back to Wisconsin. Literally, the only thing he's done is, pass a tax bill that just enriched himself. And so, what we want to say is, look, what we deserve as a state and as a people is a true partner for Tammy Baldwin to bring some real change and real results for the people of Wisconsin. And that's what we're trying to tell people is I'm the candidate with an actual track record of real accomplishment and real results. And we're going to be able to go to Washington and do that same thing.
Alex, you were instrumental in the DNC scheduled to come to Milwaukee. Obviously, we were all a little disappointed. The pandemic forced Joe Biden and the broader convention to stay away. Sort of a digression, but Milwaukee Mayor Tom Barrett says, formally, we, the city of Milwaukee, would like to get the next convention, the 2024. Alex would, assuming, I'm not sure, perhaps you'd have a job in DC at the time, but would you be supportive broadly of bringing the DNC back to Milwaukee?
Look, I've said constantly, I want to bring every convention here to Wisconsin, and bringing the DNC in 2024 or 2028 or whenever would be awesome. And I think that would be great and something that we should definitely, be going for. But I also think, the hope of the DNC convention, how we know that the 2020 bid was successful, is we've already proven to the country and to the world that we can host events like that. We've shown, with winning the bid for the 2020 Democratic National Convention and with, what happened during the NBA Finals, that Milwaukee can compete with cities like Houston and Miami, and can host the biggest conventions around the country. And so what we need to do is not just only go after the Democratic National Convention, but start going after all the conventions. And we might lose some, but we're going to win a lot more bids because we've got a lot to offer. And I think that was the point of what we were trying to show with the Democratic National Convention bid, which is Milwaukee doesn't need to be, we need to out Milwaukee as this top tier city that can compete with Chicago, Houston, Miami, Phoenix. Right, we already beat them in all of our athletic games. We might as well start beating them in conventions and start bringing all of those events here to Milwaukee so everyone can see all that Wisconsin has to offer.
Alex Lasry, U.S. senatorial candidate, my fine guest. Alex, fundraising, obviously raising money, whether it's bringing the DNC to town or to, raise a U.S. senatorial candidacy. My understanding is your fundraising has been fairly strong. I'm only going on the reporting of others, but my understanding is something to the effect of $3 million. Is that fairly accurate, Alex?
Yeah, we've had a great, start to this campaign, first three quarters, where we've, I think, in our first quarter raised the most money in Wisconsin history for a Senate challenger. We've had, we've been able to raise over $3 million in this campaign so far. And we've been able to get donations from all 72 counties of Wisconsin. So we're really proud of the work that we've been able to do on that front. And that's just part of it, right? Money helps you be a little bit more viable. At the end of the day, these campaigns do cost money. And we've been incredibly proud and lucky to have the support of so many people from Wisconsin who are all believing that, we need a senator to go to Washington to get things done. And that's, and I think that's why we've seen such enthusiasm for our campaign.
Well, we've seen the top line number for the third quarter, but I haven't yet seen your full fundraising disclosures. Alex, do you care to disclose whether or not you contributed to the campaign in the quarter?
Look, we've said constantly, we're going to make sure that we invest in the campaign, and that we're going to make sure that the Republicans and whoever don't have the resources to outflank us, because that's the one thing that I've said is we're not going to lose this race because the other side was able to get their message out more, or they were able to hammer us with negatives and we couldn't respond. That's happened to us all too often, and I've said. We're not only going to have a robust fundraising operation, but we're also going to invest in our own campaign because we want to make sure that we give us the best chance to win and give Wisconsinites a real voice in Washington. And so that's where that's what we've said throughout the campaign, and that's what we're going to continue to do. We're going to be able to mesh both, and it's good, but the lead of this entire campaign is going to be the grassroots fundraising that we've been able to do.
Folks, you are listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. That's Alex Lasry. He's a U.S. senatorial candidate, a Milwaukee Bucks executive on leave, in deference to the candidacy. And I didn't quite hear a straight answer, but I'm going to put you down for a maybe there. Alex, it's going to take a lot of money. And the question becomes, and I have no doubt you've demonstrated your ability and capability of raising money, but is it a fine line you walk as a candidate? There are defined dollar caps that you can accept for your primary campaign and for your general election campaign. And you got to go through this sort of long slog, this 13-month, 15-month, however many months you've been in between here and the primary next August. And then it's going to be a sprint, Alex. Whoever wins the nomination for the Democratic Party is going to have to go up against a particularly wealthy opponent who has self-funded in the past, has seen outside dollars, some would say from the NRA, some would say from Russia, but, setting aside Ron Johnson's resume for a little bit, do you have to play a balancing game at this point? How much does finances factor into any candidacy?
I think finance factors into every candidacy, right? Like it costs money to pay your staff. It costs money to, do paid communications. These things cost money. I think though, what we're trying to do is make sure, and that's why we've said, look, we want as many people donating to our campaign as possible, and we're going to have skin in the game as well. And that's why we're going to make sure that we're investing also. And I think, look, the most important thing that we're trying to do is let people know, this is going to be a campaign about why us, right? Why we think we're the best candidate to go to the U.S. Senate and deliver for the people of Wisconsin. This isn't going to be why not, anyone else, right? We want to talk about us and proactively what we would do in the U.S. Senate and how we would help move Wisconsin forward. And that's what this ad campaign is about. That's what this entire campaign is about. And again, I think that's why we've seen such enthusiasm, not just from fundraising, but also in endorsements and support.
Alex, I was worried for a while Daniel Bice was going to define your campaign. He's been writing lots of columns about the candidates, whether it's you or Rojo or anyone else, cares a lot about how much you pay in taxes and what tax bracket you are in. And I would say, Alex, you have more material well-being than probably the average person listening to us right now. How do you make yourself the candidate of the grassroots? Alex, do you think people can see you representing them if you are in a substantially different tax bracket than most of the voters in Wisconsin?
Yeah, I mean, look, what we've been able to do and what we've told everyone is, look at what we're saying. Look at the policies we're proposing, right? I mean, when we just take it, for example, our support for unionized labor, we're the only campaign in this race that has a unionized campaign staff, right? Like we're not just talking about our values, we're leading on them and we're living them. And that's where I think we're differentiating ourselves from every other campaign in the race, where we're able to actually say, hey, look, we're trying to live these values. And if you want to know what we're going to do in Washington, and what we're going to do on behalf of the people of Wisconsin, look at how we've run our organization, look at how we're running our campaign. And, that's what we've said to, look at that for everyone else too. And so, I think what we've been able to do in separating ourselves is basically being able to say, we need someone in Washington to be able to go get some real results and some real things done, and look at our track record. And we're going to be able to do that when we get to DC.
Alex, quickly give them the website so they can support your campaign.
If anyone's interested in getting involved, go to alexlasry.com.
alexlasry.com. Thank you, Alex Lasry. More Devil's Advocates.